Welcome everyone to The Road Home series presented by GMC. They are such an important ally at the intersection of HBCU culture, consumerism, lifestyle, and business as we celebrate the spirit of cultural capital, community, and connectivity during this year's HBCU homecoming season all across the country. So for everyone joining us in the audience today, please know that you are the key to banking on the next generation beyond the HBCU yard. So thank you for not only being with us right now, but of course, for joining us in the work ahead. I'm Corey Hale, the CEO and co-founder of Culture Banks, and we're going to unpack the importance of banking on the next generation through the importance of Black culture within the business ecosystem and what it takes along the road home to building a strong future. So with that in mind, folks, let's jump right into our conscious conversation around banking on the next generation with our excellent panelists today. Starting out, let me introduce you guys today, Tavio Samuels, who serves as CEO of Revolt, founded by Sean Diddy Combs, and is America's fastest growing Black-owned media company. He sits at the intersection of culture and content and is one of corporate America's youngest and most accomplished senior executives. Under his leadership, Revolt aspires to shift the narrative around Black people globally by building the world's largest and most powerful ecosystem for Black storytelling. He's been recognized for his work as a marketing executive, receiving several honors that include being named TV Executive of the Year by Digiday, one of the top 100 content leaders by Cablefax, and a trailblazer in media by 100 Black Men of New York. In addition to his notable work, as if that was not enough within creative industries, Samuels is also an Amazon best-selling author. And we also have joining us today, fortunately, Kai Cunningham, managing partner at Limited Ventures, which is a $150 million venture capital fund he co-founded that is backed by the likes of the Forbes family, the Rockefeller family, and the Costa family. It's dedicated to helping athletes, entertainers, and family offices invest in the top 1% of venture deals, with his partners making him one of the youngest founders and managing partners of a fund of this size in the country. He has helped over 100 athletes and entertainers, among other partners, invest in venture capital. Kai began his career on the trading floor at Goldman Sachs in New York City, where his group managed relationships for the firm's top 60 institutional clients across all asset classes before moving into private wealth management in Los Angeles, where his team managed over $2 billion for ultra high net worth clients. Also, as an aside, Kai, I know you're getting ready to drop a book as well. I'm not actually sure if it's out just yet, but I want to welcome both of you to this great conversation. So hi, Tavio. Hi, Kai.
Hey, thanks for having us.
I'm happy that you guys are both here. And I actually want to just dive right into a couple of questions. And Tavio, we're going to kick it off with you first, because Revolt, it has been at the forefront of driving culture for more than a decade at this intersection of music and content. In your opinion, how does culture impact the way that you all bridge this rapidly expanding media landscape?
Yeah. The way that I see it, Corey, is that all great brands have always been built off of culture and off the culture of the moment, whether you're talking about Nike or Beats by Dre, or even people like Dove and the work that they're doing in the beauty space. Where Revolt is lucky, or it's purposeful, is that we literally are the culture. We are betting on hip hop. We are betting on Black culture, which we all know is global culture. And so there is no distance between the culture and Revolt. But one of the ways that we have fortified our position in the culture is that we firmly believe that the future of media is influencer, and specifically creators who are influencers. And so a big part of what we're doing is trying to create a new world for Black creators, whether that is, helping them understand that we believe that inside of them, we believe that they can build the next Game of Thrones, the next Marvel, the next Pixar, whether it is helping to nurture their career through its entire life cycle, but partnering with the Carishas, the Noriegas, the people who are moving culture every day, associating them with our platform, helping to amplify them and build them up, is one of the ways that we've been able to fortify our position in the culture, specifically in the media landscape.
Well, you guys have been doing an excellent job. The Hey Carisha show is actually very, very entertaining. And of course, obviously, Noriega has been killing it for quite some time in the broader podcast space. And I love that you just name dropped a couple people just there as well, just for the culture one time.
Yeah. You saw
Wait,
they won. Did you see that they both won BET Hip Hop Awards yesterday?
Wait, no, I didn't see it.
Yeah. So we didn't get on there, but BET gave an award for Best Hip Hop Platform. Both Carisha and Drink Champs won. So again, that's what I'm saying. You can't tear Revolt from the culture. We are the culture by definition.
I love that. All right, Kai, I got to bring you into this conversation because I know that in recent years, there's been a surge of businesses and organizations coming online, right, to support underrepresented founders with strategic approaches to building, right, this strong future. I would love for those who might not be familiar with the limited ventures the way I am, if you could just talk about the unique space, because it's very cool that you guys operate in, and really the long-term role that culture plays in your business. I forgot to also drop that Kai is also on the advisory board for True Capital as well, which also represents a lot of entertainers and athletes.
Well, for the True Capital's Culture Fund, that's focused on investing in minority and women founders. No, look, I think inevitably the reality of the matter is, if you look at Silicon Valley and venture capital, right, like that space historically has only been available to the 1% of the 1%. So what I've been able to do, with some of my friends who become clients is essentially create access for athletes and entertainers to get access into these deals. But because the athletes open up the space and open up the cap tables, we also have organizations like the National Bankers Association, the National Bar Association, and their members inevitably are now able to get access into those same deals. And that door was open because of the athletes and entertainers, right? So you have this situation where you have these big family offices and top venture capital firms, this concept of the culture shifting the mindset from being a consumer and being consumers to being owners. And we created this platform to essentially bridge that gap, right? So to his point, when he answered the question, right, you can't remove the culture from any of the things that we're seeing on the end product. I think now we're at such a unique time to where it's becoming cool to invest. It's becoming cool for the culture to become owners, right? So my job is essentially being a cultural translator, right? Bridging the gap between the billionaires and these big billion-dollar institutions, right? And widening the access gap for not only the athletes and the entertainers, but people in their infrastructure, people in their network, right? Because ultimately, as you look at, the cultural icons that push culture forward every day, what we're trying to do is change the narrative and add to their repertoire to say, hey, this person is not only an influencer, an entertainer, or actor, or movie star, basketball player, they're also a venture capitalist, right? They're also investing in private equity, right? We see this huge trend of all of these celebrities, like Serena started Serena Ventures. You have Marcy Venture Partners, right? You have Queensbridge Ventures, right? How do we open up that access so that now, whether you're Serena, LeBron, Kevin Hart, or maybe you're the 11th or 12th guy on the bench, regardless, you are someone that is pushing the culture forward. How do we change the narrative around you? Because you may be LeBron in your hometown, right? The kids from Compton or Baltimore or Detroit or in any place to where the culture is represented in its truest essence, we want to start to educate and put light and visibility on private equity, venture. And it doesn't just stop with my fund, right? On the real estate side, every single asset class, right? We want to figure out how to, bring the culture into an ownership position. So that's something that we're really excited about.
Well, of course, I'm all about Black ownership at all levels. And what you're doing at Limited Ventures is so desperately needed for our community. And to see people like you in this space, it gives me so much hope for what can happen in the future. And I want to bring this a little bit more back to the HBCU culture. Now, I know, Tavio, you did not attend a HBCU. However, you are part of the Divine Nine, so we give you a slight pass, my brother, for not making it fully onto the yard. But something that has really been in the headlines lately is about HBCU sports, specifically Byron Allen's company, HBCU Go. They have been in the spotlight, and they've been catching major interest from more than 24 advertisers. I'm talking the likes of Walmart, Capital One, Meta, Verizon, just to name a few. And being in the space that you're in with Revolt, why do you think that these brands want to be able to align themselves with HBCUs and Black culture in this moment in time?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, HBCUs have always been a hotbed for talent and for culture. And I think that brands are just now catching on, right? I think that they're a little bit late to the party. But what finally gets them to the party is, of course, the unfortunate murder of George Floyd, right? And when he gets murdered, then all of a sudden now the world starts to see a little bit differently. The algorithm shifts a little bit. And so out of that, we start to see brands making commitments saying, hey, we're going to take Black media. Right now, the core problem is that Black media, or that Black culture, drives the majority of pop culture, but Black media only gets 1% of the dollars. So as you start to see advertisers say, we're going to get Black media to 2%, to 3%, to 4%, you have people like GM who, to me, landed at the top at 8%, right? So as you start to see that change, now they need different places to invest the money. HBCUs are a wonderful place to put those dollars. They have been the birthplace of some of our greatest talent, whether you're talking about people like Martin Luther King, Samuel L. Jackson. I'll throw my boss in there, Sean Combs, right? Went to Howard. So they've always been a place where we produce some of our greatest and our best talent. But it is also true that in this moment, it is trendy to jump on this HBCU kind of wagon. We see the work that people like Deion Sanders are doing at Jackson State, which is phenomenal. And as he's doing that work and Black people are entering into this space where we are leveraging our collective power. So now our young men and our young women are choosing our Black HBCUs over the Dukes that I went to, and over the Florida States, and over some of these other schools. And so now I think they're attracting better talent. You've got people like Deion Sanders that's got a spotlight on HBCUs. Brands have all these dollars that they need to deploy. And again, HBCUs were always a great place for brands to put their money. I think they're just now seeing it and realizing it in a big way.
Tavio, I love when you come dropping facts. And unfortunately, it's a sad fact that media spend is only 1% for actually Black-owned media companies. That number needs to be significantly higher than what it is. But as you mentioned, one of our partners, General Motors, they are trying to step up to the plate to the best of their abilities, but it can't just be one company, right? It has to be all of them, considering, how we are the culture, and it moves when we move in any direction, and we get to set the tone for that. Kai, this brings me back to you now, who also did not attend a HBCU. However, we still have nothing but love for you, Kai. Yes, don't act like I wasn't going to throw that out there, because I know that you didn't as well. However, you are very, very connected to the culture, especially in what it is that you do. And I just want to bring up a report that came out from Third Way recently that found the majority of Black counties actually saw a 103% jump in new business applications between 2019 and 2021. That's compared to a 54% increase nationally. As someone who invests in some of the biggest companies in the world, what role do you think the Black community and our culture plays in this type of startup surge specifically?
Yeah, I think there's two sides of the equation that have always needed to be addressed. And I love the point that Tavio brought up about George Floyd kind of putting this spotlight on Black culture, right? So on one hand, we have this issue to where most of the venture capital does not go to Black and, to Black founders, right? So you got a situation where there's someone like Adam Newman, former co-founder of WeWork, got a $350 million check, which was more capital, was more than all of the capital that was raised by Black founders in the same quarter, right? So on one hand, you have this challenge where there's not enough capital flowing to help fund, Black founders, right? Because our friends and family round is very challenging for us, which is very pivotal when you talk about a startup company, right? Then on the other side, which we try to tackle first to solve the first side, is that when you think about Black wealth and the creation of it, if you've been fortunate enough to be successful, financially successful, the alternative asset class that you typically have access to is real estate. And we all know that we're redlined out of that process. That same redlining is happening in tech, except the difference is the returns are 10 times as great and 10 times as fast, right? So you have this situation where, one, there's not enough capital going into Black founders, right? So we're very behind in terms of the innovation and the access that allows us to create. And then on the other hand, there's not enough Black investors into the deals that are actually driving the historical returns as well, right? So what we try to do is leverage the family office relationships of the fund the cultural influencers to open that door so that we can start having, the lawyer that's making $200K and that's actually eligible to invest in the same deals as, the top venture firms. How do we provide that level of access so that now this Black founder that's a child of this person that now has this access, their friends and family around, maybe they can go get that $500,000, right? So the challenge is there's not enough wealth going to the Black founders, and we've tried to attack that by creating more wealth just for the Black community in general. So I think that, these two things go hand in hand, but it's very important in terms of visibility, right? Like a lot of, even take me, I worked at Goldman Sachs when I graduated. I didn't even know what Goldman Sachs was until I was 16 years old, right? So I think just the visibility in the education, for the culture to even understand that these opportunities exist, right? And that these asset classes exist, it always plays a part because you can't be what you can't see. And if you don't know that these things exist, right, it just creates another barrier when it comes to wealth creation. So, it's super important that we continue to have these conversations. It's super important that, we continue to push the narrative forward when it comes to, what Black businesses are doing, what Black founders are doing, what Black investors are doing. And again, like I love the piece about, what the athletes and entertainment community is doing, and obviously the work that companies like Revolt are doing to continue to, push this narrative forward.
Yes, definitely. All right, guys, to keep this conversation moving, this next question is going to go out to both of you because I really want us to get on the road home. I don't know if either one of you, since you graduated or finished at undergrad, if you really went back to your university for homecoming season. It's obviously a very big deal at HBCUs to return. People return well into their 50s and 60s, perhaps a little too old to still be strolling in a parking lot, but to each his own. But when you all think back to your college days, what does the next generation need to know about how culture impacted decision-making about your future professional life and what lane you saw yourself taking over really in the driver's seat? So Tavio, we'll go ahead and just throw that one to you first, and then we'll let Kai follow up.
Sure. I actually think I want to piggyback on where Kai left off. He mentioned this notion of the importance of exposure. And one of my favorite quotes is, exposure to the next level breeds an intolerance for your current situation. Kai also mentioned that his first job, he didn't even know that it existed until he was well into his teens. And so what I want this next generation to understand is that there are so many opportunities for us to do impactful work, for us to, yes, make money, but to also be transformative in the change that we can create for our culture and our community. These jobs exist. Places like Kai's company exist. Places like Revolt exist. A lot of times we're not exposed to them, so we don't know that they exist. But what I want to encourage them to do first and foremost is go look and find those opportunities where you can make money, but also help move the ball forward for your people. The last piece that I'll say is we just completed our Revolt Summit, and our theme for this year was the future is now. And what the last thing I want to say to them is this idea that I don't know why we were all born in this moment where we got to see George Floyd being murdered during COVID when everybody was at home and nobody could move. But it created one of the illest racial awakenings that this country has ever seen. And we happen to be alive during it. I believe with great power comes great responsibility. This is a powerful moment. The responsibility is on all of us to move the needle for our people as much and as quickly as possible.
Could not agree more. What about you, Kai?
Run the question back for me one more time, just so I make sure I answer that.
He basically said, Tavio rambled on some stuff. I don't even know what he's supposed to be.
I got stuck on the fact that she keep throwing shade that, they were stuck.
It's no shade. It's all love. I just wanted to be transparent for the audience here, so they're not like, oh, I Googled this person. I saw on LinkedIn that he did not go to HBC. I'm just trying to put it out there for the people. But let me run back the question for you one more time. You did touch on this a little bit in terms of you being 16 before you ever heard of Goldman Sachs. But what is it that you feel like you would have told yourself back in college, or that you felt like you needed to know from a cultural perspective that would have really helped shape the way you made your professional decisions going forward?
Yeah, I think, what's interesting about the space that I entered in, right? So I went to Villanova, is predominantly white. My high school, McDonough, was predominantly white. And I think the thing that I saw a lot of my peers struggle with is kind of this sense of identity, right? We all know what code switching is. We all know it, you know, in certain situations, you are supposed to do this or supposed to act that way, right? But I think what George Floyd's murder ultimately highlighted, right, what was kind of under the ground, if you will, that I started to see have some light shed on it, is it was actually okay in a sense to bring your full Black self to whatever environment that you were in, right? And I think that that's something, it shouldn't have taken that situation because it's twofold, right? It shouldn't have taken that situation for bigger institutions to say it is okay to do this. And then it also shouldn't have taken that situation for Black people to feel like it was okay to be our full selves in that sense, right? So I guess my answer to that question is we gotta, you know, start basking in the beauty of our Blackness 100% of the time, even if it makes people feel uncomfortable, because you better believe that there are situations to where, you know, where we couldn't do that, right, to the fullest extent, right? So I think this entire concept of just identity and this proudness need to be kind of shown at all stages, and it takes a collective effort, right? Like it takes, you know, from a young age, right? Like I got a 4-year-old daughter, me telling her like it's beautiful to be Black, right? So that she can wear that confidence on her sleeve, right? So I think it happens at a number of different levels, but I think it's a two-way street, you know, in our community and in our culture, you know, just this pridefulness that we need to continue to share.
I am definitely going to steal this quote about basking in the beauty of our Blackness. Like when I listen to you talk about the financial thing, I'm like, oh, we sound a lot alike them, but that basket, I don't have that in my repertoire. So
amazing. The next time you see Tavio speak, he's gonna probably push off on his own. Like we have to bask in the beauty of our Blackness.
Exactly. I'm just giving Kai warning.
No, it's all good.
Fair warning. All right, guys, this is going to be our last question right here that I'm going to throw out to both of you again. And maybe Kai will start with you, because I know you have a deep roster of influential people, right, that are in your network. So who do you actually turn to for guidance when you think about, you know, what your future looks like, where you want to be? Like, who was in your network that you leverage to really get to the next level?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So for me, my father was actually killed when I was 2 years old, right? And that absence from, you know, a father figure standpoint, it was actually the driving force for me to find mentors throughout my career on a professional setting, right? On a professional side, right? So fortunately, I've had, you know, mentors, you know, probably since I would say, I mean, I got mentors in my life, like my uncle and my older brother, who served as father figures. Then I have mentors on the business side. And then, you know, can't forget to shout out God, you know, on the spiritual side, right? But I think that for me, that absence in my life was actually very influential, because I was able to develop deeper than business relationships with a lot of people across the spectrum, right? I think that one thing that's important to understand, right, is that mentorship can come in 1,000 different ways, right? So earlier when you asked the question about how the culture, you know, is tangential to our business, right? I mentioned how our thesis is around changing the narrative around athletes and entertainers and what they represent to the culture, right? So a lot of my mentors growing up, I'd actually never met, right? Like I looked up to Kobe and Allen Iverson and Jay-Z and all of these people that I was interacting with, you know, virtually in a sense, right? But now I think it's also, you know, pretty cool to see these guys, you know, switch over to different lanes and become successful, because a lot of kids, unfortunately, grow up in this with the same disadvantage that I did, right? Single parent household. Maybe they didn't have an older brother or an uncle to look up to. Maybe they didn't have that business mentor or collection of business mentors, right? So I think, you know, that's why the culture and the athletes, the entertainers, and those who push the culture forward are so important, because they're like family members or mentors to us. And you know, a lot of them obviously know it, but it's something that's, you know, pretty cool when you think about that dichotomy, right? Because you're looking up to a person that you've never met before. So inadvertently, their decision-making, their image, their, you know, everything that they focus on is directly impacted not only yourself, but probably a lot of kids in your peer group, right? So I think for me, you know, understanding that I was fortunate enough to actually have physical mentors as well as this change that we're starting to see in the athlete and entertainer community to mentors that I had never met before in life, right? I think that's an important dichotomy that should be, highlighted a little bit more, because I'm sure we all probably had that same, that same kind of thought process.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Tavio?
Yeah, I want to pick up where Kai left off on this notion of like great mentors can come from anywhere. For a long part of my career, people used to ask me who my mentors were, and I used to say, I don't have any. That's the part that I failed in building in my career. And what I realized is that I pledged this incredible fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi specific chapter at Duke University. And those brothers are all of my mentors. They may be 3 years older than me or 4 years older than me or 5 years older, but they were, even the ones that are my age and younger, all play critical roles in helping to shape the decisions that I make. And so I would just say my core circle is full of mentors and brothers. And then the two other ones that I want to mention, I would be remiss if I didn't say Sean Combs. He is mentor, coach in every way that you can think of, visionary, inspirational, pushing us and pushing me specifically to dream as big as I can possibly dream. And so he's been a phenomenal mentor. And then I'll end where Kai did, which is God did. Like, that's my other one. It's almost like I serve an earthly king, and so I get the benefits of being underneath him. And then I serve a spiritual king more than anything and anybody else, right? I don't make any moves without him. So those will be my three.
All right, look at that God did. Shout out to God and DJ Khaled's latest album as well, all in one. All right, guys, we're gonna move now to a very quick rapid fire question section. You guys just answer the first thing that comes to your mind. We're gonna kick it off with you, Tavio. What motivates you to keep going and why?
Impact. It's the only reason I get up. I want to see the world change, specifically for our people. Impact.
All right, I love that. Kai, you're up next. What are 3 skills people need, in your opinion, to be a successful entrepreneur or investor?
That's a great question. I would say awareness, networking, and discipline.
All right, Tavio, back to you. What time of day are you most productive?
Without question, I'm the most productive in the morning when everybody else is sleeping. Nobody is bothering me.
Except when Corey texts you from the East Coast and I just go to LA super early. I'm like, Tavio's up. No, I get it. All right, Kai, back to you. What is your favorite life hack?
Oh, favorite life hack? It's definitely the cliche term of it's not what you know, it's who you know. You can definitely skip levels with the right connect.
Hey, I love to hear that, and very, very true. Tavio, back to you. What is the one app on your phone that you cannot live without?
Okay, this one might be a little silly, but I'm going to say Sudoku. All of the other apps that I use are for productivity, right? I'm getting business done, I'm posting on social media, etc. I need Sudoku to zone out. It is the one thing, like every night on planes when it's like, I just need to let my brain be. And then I also think, this may not be true, but Sudoku is also a strategy game. So I have this belief that while I'm zoning out, I'm also strengthening my strategic muscles. So anyway, Sudoku will be my answer for today.
All right. Very interesting. That's not where I thought you were going with that, Tavio, but okay. Kai, for you, what is the one book that changed your life?
Oh, so my spiritual answer is going to be the Bible, but I would actually say outside of that, Watching White Guys Have All the Fun by Reginald F. Lewis, first Black billionaire, and he's from Baltimore.
And he's a noob.
Look at the connection. See, bring everybody together here. All right, this is the last rapid fire question. This goes out to both of you. Tavio, we're going to start with you. What song is currently on repeat on your playlist?
That God Did, without question. That's how we got there fast. Yeah, for sure.
Kai, what about you?
I got a lot of stuff on repeat. It's definitely God Did, for sure. The Jay-Z verse, just the Jay-Z.
That Jay-Z verse is bananas.
Shout out to Rose and Wayne, but I go to that song specifically for that verse.
Yeah.
Okay, so both you guys are listening to the same thing. I felt like I just made like a true like connection and bromance here between the two of you.
Our last two answers had so much overlap. So
yeah, absolutely.
This is what we do at Culture Banks. We bring people together. That's part of the thing we do. But most importantly, what we like to do is share business news for our people in a culturally relevant and authentic way. And we would not be able to do that without both of you. So thank you guys for being part of this series. And of course, our partner, General Motors, for helping us bring this to life. And for everyone watching, don't you worry, we're going to be back with several more of these conversations between now and the end of the year. Be sure, though, that you check out culturebanks.com for more information. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.